Hey everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And welcome. Thank you guys for joining. I am so excited you are here. Today we are going to be getting tactical and practical and rolling up our sleeves and actually using the software. And what we're going to be looking at today is actually creating a project plan and a timeline view inside of Jira. And so if you're looking at my screen, you can see that we're in the tactical project. This is just a test project in a testing environment with fictitious data that we're going to create. And we're looking at things in the backlog view. And in a moment, we'll switch to the timeline view and I will walk you through the benefits of having a timeline and all the reasons why you could use it in Jira. And so if we just click on timeline here, before we get started, the first thing that we want to say to ourselves is why would we even create a timeline, a project plan, or a product rollout roadmap? And I know that those three things are different, but for the purpose of this, we're going to just talk about them as if they were the same because we're going to focus on the similarities, not the differences. I know that there's unique and distinct differences from them. And so the first reason why you would want to do this is because if you were running a small project or a product rollout, let's just say it's you and a small team and a small stakeholder, a small client base, it is a good way to write everything down, so to speak, and to get it out of everyone's head and allow the team to have something to anchor around, to rally around, to look at, and to check it at some frequency that everyone agrees on to make sure that nothing is missed and that we're tracking towards our overall objectives and goals. So that might be like once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, depending on what you guys want to do. And so that's the benefit for a small project or a product rollout. But imagine it's not small. Imagine that you are managing a program with multiple work streams, multiple projects, multiple product rollouts within those projects, and stakeholders not only globally spread out across the world, but spread out across business divisions, across product, operations, logistics, technology, compliance, cyber, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all the other cool departments that are becoming more and more popular today, especially with things like AI and ML and compliance, making sure we're compliant when we roll these things out in big organizations. The value for a big program is that everyone can come to this virtual dashboard. You can give them a URL and they can see what's happening in real time. And what I mean by they can see what's happening in real time is if a developer or a designer is working inside of their Jira project in the background, and maybe you have a monthly business review or quarterly business review, and you're looking at a high level epic like I'm showing here, or a high level goal, and they want to get a little more granular in regards to what's happening in that goal. This is, once again, this is just a test. You could just click here and see all the different things that are happening, the status, who's working on them, and when they're due. Now, this level of detail may be appropriate for some folks, may not be appropriate for others. You need to know your clients, you need to know your stakeholders. So for me, I'm a detail guy. I want to see what's happening. I like to see visual progress bars and status and percents completed. And I want to talk to the actual guy or gal working on this. I want to be able to say, hey, Johnny, I know the overall epic is to make sure that we create this artificial intelligence chatbot and roll it out by Q3, but like, what are you actually doing here? I want to talk about that in a group setting to make sure that everyone's on the same page. But that's me. Not everyone is like me. And so it's important to know your audience and know what level of detail people want to digest. So, in other words, I'm a bit of a glutton. If you put something on my plate, I'm going to eat everything and lick it clean. Other people want to approach a different way to digest the information. And so that's why this is powerful. And if we were to just look at this and say, right now we're viewing it by month, but I want to view it by quarter. Because let's assume that we're doing this in Q3 or Q4 to set ourselves up for next year. So we always do our planning the year before. We always plan on a quarterly basis so that come the first business day of January the following year, everyone is lined up to start making progress. And that's why we do it that way. But you can see how quickly you can click between show me it on a monthly level, a weekly level, versus even what's happening today. And it'll highlight for you where we are. Now, you might say, Mark, well, that's pretty silly. Obviously, I know today is here and I know where we are. I know you do, but with a lot going on from different epics and goals at a high level, it's good to have this as an anchor point. Okay. So months, quarters, and then even if you click here, you can get rid of that. But I like to see that. Okay. So the four main buckets for planning, and we're just going to do this from a testing perspective, you want to have. Your first one you want to start off with is, I'm just going to say create epic, and I'm going to say P&A, epic. It's kind of redundant to call this epic because if you're using this for a while, you visually identify this lightning bolt as an epic, but for anyone new kind of using it, and we're just going to click here. We're going to edit the dates. And once again, we're assuming that we're doing this from the beginning. And we're going to say, all right, we're going to start our planning and analysis the first business day of the year. So January 1st to, we're going to say this is going to last, planning and analysis is going to last, we're going to give this 2 sprints worth of effort. And if you know me, you know I do a sprint in about 2 weeks. So you say, Mark, what does that mean, two sprints worth of effort, planning analysis? So that means if we start here and we end here, or end here, that's 1 sprint's worth of effort. This would be 2, about 2 weeks, okay? So we're going to end it here. And we're going to say confirm. All right. Now what just happened? We have this visual representation that's showing us that this is the body of work that's happening for this planning and analysis epic. Now, this Scrum 8, just ignore that number for now. That's just a sort of like a unique identifier for the planning and analysis epic. And just like we showed in this test example, we can have all these different stories or subtasks below it if we wanted. We're not going to do that now. The next thing we want to say is, so we do our planning and analysis. And the reason why we do planning and analysis together is because for a week or so, we're going to get all our planning together. That's going to be everything from who's our client, who are our stakeholders, what's our stakeholder matrix, how are we going to communicate, how often are we going to communicate, when's our sprint planning, when's our retrospectives, when's our monthly business reviews, our quarterly business reviews, how are we going to set that up. The analysis piece is, maybe we're working with an artificial intelligence vendor and they're providing some service for us in addition to what we're building. And so we're going to have some analysis and we're going to need to look at that. But that really shouldn't take more than about, like I said, 2 sprints worth of effort. And that's about a month's time with goals we'll set per each sprint for planning and for analysis. Okay. The next thing we want to say is we'll create another epic. And this epic is going to be for design and deliver. Sometimes I'll call this D&D. So we have P&A, planning analysis, and we have design and deliver, D&D. And once again, this is a lot of this stuff is redundant for anyone that's maybe never used Jira before. But if you used Jira before and you've worked with me before, you will see P&A, D&D. You won't see words like epic because you'll know that whenever you see this little purple lightning bolt icon, you know what that means. And we're going to say, okay, so we're doing planning and analysis for about 2 sprints. When are we going to do design and deliver? So what is design and deliver? After we do our planning and analysis, design and deliver is literally a prototype. This is something we do in a testing environment. Sometimes you will hear people call this, they'll say this is a test, this is a POC, a proof of concept, this is a pilot. Imagine that this is something that is going to hit 1 million users. We're not going to roll this out to 1 million people. That is asking for an issue. We're going to do this in a small prototype testing environment because it's very cost effective to do it that way. And we're going to show our stakeholders, we're going to show our clients this prototype, this design, we're going to deliver it to them, and we're going to get feedback and iterate. So let's just go to edit dates here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back here. And remember, we said planning and analysis started here and ended here. And so we'll give ourselves a week in between planning and analysis and design and deliver to make any tweaks, to make any adjustments that we found during our P&A phase before we start designing and delivering. And so let's say we start that on the 26th, and it's the same thing. We're going to do that for about 2 sprints worth of effort, maybe even 3 sprints worth of effort if you want to do this in a little more slow and steady fashion. And so if we're starting here, this would be 1, right? Because sprints are about 2 weeks. And this would be 2. Okay. I'm going to confirm that. And now you can see, and I'm just going to scroll to the right here a little bit. I'm going to get rid of that today window. And now, as you're looking at this, you're starting to say, well, Mark, it's looking a little busy. I don't like it. It's too busy. I'm losing the simplicity. Keep in mind that this, and this, these are all just testing things, right? This is just from a testing purpose. If you were creating this from scratch, you would start off with planning and analysis epic, design and deliver epic, okay? And you have your visual representation across quarters of what's happening for Q1, Q2, and Q3. And once again, one of the additional benefits, one of the additional powerful tools here is that it gives you this visual representation that you can slice and dice in different ways with the click of a button. And so we're not going to cover this in this video because we've done it in other videos, but we're looking at this in a timeline view. We could very simply, and we're not going to do it now, you could look at it in a backlog view, a board view, a list view, just by clicking these things here. You can create a shared goal if we're working across multiple streams, and we can link these epics to shared goals. So right now we're looking at this from one particular product rollout or project plan, but if we had goals where multiple teams across an organization, we can link those shared goals here. All right, so we have planning and analysis happening across 2 sprints worth of effort. We have design and deliver happening across 2 sprints worth of effort. Once again, the sprint is about 2 weeks for me, so that's about 29, 30 days. And oh, look, I messed up here. You say, Mark, what do you mean you messed up? I only made this about 1 sprint's worth of effort. So I'm just going to hover over it, and I'm going to say, okay, let's make this. Now it's about a month's worth of effort cut up across 2 sprints, bi-weekly sprints. And you saw how easy it was. I just dragged that. Now, because I don't want these to happen at the same time in parallel, I want this to happen after, and I want there to be a little delay. I'm just going to move it. And I'm going to say, give me about a week before that happens, and then make this last for about 2 sprints worth of effort. And you can see, you can set the exact dates here. And so whether you want to click it here and say edit dates like we did the first time, it's very easy. Or if you're a more visual person like me, you can edit what sometimes people will call the Gantt chart view here. Now, if some of your stakeholders are not very technically savvy and they don't want to go to a real-time URL to see what's happening here, and obviously you want to walk them through this the first couple of times to make sure that they understand what they're looking at. If you're a Clips person, if you're a Loom person, you can actually even record a quick 5-minute video overview and then send that. So if you have a large stakeholder base and not everyone can attend the call, the meeting, you can have a recording and say for anyone that didn't have a chance to look at this, you can watch the video. And the reason why you might do that is so as the lead PM, you don't have to have 50 of the same conversations over and over and over again. You can have that one conversation in the meeting with the stakeholders that are able to attend based on their availability. You record that, send it in a video clip, and anyone that wants to see it can see it after. Okay, so all of these tools are integrated inside of Jira. I'm not speaking about tools that are outside of Jira. So all this stuff is integrated, and we'll do more videos in the future, or you could look at my videos from the past. We've talked about some of this stuff. Okay, so we have planning and analysis epic, 2 sprints worth of efforts. We have design and deliver epic, 2 sprints worth of effort. And now the next thing we're going to do is create an epic. And this is going to be our R&R epic. All right, so I'm just going to write R&R. Now, if you've worked with me in the past, you've seen this stuff before, so you know what it is. If you've never worked with me, you can be like, what are these crazy words? So R&R is roll out and revise. Say, what do you mean roll out and revise, Mark? So we're going to plan, we're going to do our analysis, we're going to do our prototype and design and deliver, and then we're going to do our rollout and revise. Once again, in the example I used for fictitious purposes, we are rolling out a artificial intelligence chat bot. We have our own artificial intelligence, we have our own chat bot, and we're going to be integrating with a third party that can offer us some additional benefits and services because the juice sort of isn't worth the squeeze for us. We want to keep doing what we're doing, but we don't want to spend all this extra time, and we can have a third party just give us this instantaneously. We're dealing with about 1 million users. So in our design and deliver pilot, maybe we have a subset of that. Maybe we start with 1,000 people. Maybe we start with 10,000 people. Maybe we start with 100,000 people. We start with some subset that we agree with our stakeholders before we roll out and revise to all of the other 1 million users across the businesses. Okay. And so once again, we're going to do this visually. We're going to say, okay, I'm just going to click here. And look what it did. In one click, it said, huh, this user, Jira said, this user seems to be setting up their epics a week apart for about 30 days or 2 sprints worth of effort. And so with one click, it knew to do that. And I just set it up here. Sort of like you would do an autofill if you're an Excel person like me. If you start to type numbers in a column 1, 2, 3, it starts seeing the sequence and will just write 4, 5, 6 for you. This is doing the same thing. This is just an autofill. Okay. So we're going over, I try and keep these videos down to 10 minutes or less, and we're at about 20 minutes here. So we're going over my rules. So I'm going to wrap this up. Effectively, when we're doing our project planning or our product rollout roadmap, we're going to have some key things we want. A planning and analysis epic, a design and deliver epic, and a rollout and revise epic. So P&A, D&D, and R&R. We'll have maybe 1 or 2 more that we'll cover in another video, but this is really enough to get us started. We want each of these epics to have about a week in between, And we want each of them to be across a bi-weekly sprint, meaning at the end of 2 weeks, we're going to have hard, concrete, measurable deliverables that we're going to show and discuss with our clients, with our stakeholders that are funding us so that we're showing progress. We're specifically going to give them a pilot and a design and deliver, and then we're going to take a week to iterate before we have a plan that we roll out and we revise to the rest of our million users in this fictitious example. The benefit of having a plan in Jira, number one, it automatically creates the visual timeline and what they call a Gantt chart for you with the click of a button, and it automatically reads what you're doing and creates autofills. If you don't want to see it across quarters, you can look at it across months or weeks. But for this purpose, we're going to look at quarterly deliverables, and we're going to scroll here, and we can see these are across Q1 and Q2. So when we're communicating with our stakeholders, we'll let them know that by the end of Q1, they'll have their sort of prototype. And from Q1 into Q2, we'll start the revise and rollout plan. All right. We can have subtasks or stories below the epics. This is just a test epic with a test story. But the value here is it actually shows us who's working on these things, what's the status and where they're at. We can even add more visual progress bars or things like percent and complete. If you're a RAG guy like me, red, amber, green, you can add RAG ratings. You can have a custom URL and control which of your users have access to this project, or you can keep it completely open because people won't know this URL unless you give it to them. Or you can keep controls on it if you don't want your stakeholders communicating this without you. It's totally up to you. You're totally in control. You can give them a video overview using Loom. Loom is a video tool that is integrated with inside of Jira. So inside of your quarterly or monthly business review, you can do a video overview for someone that's maybe not familiar with this or seen this before. You communicate the deliverables and the timeline to your stakeholders, record that Loom, and in 5 minutes or less, all the stakeholders have access to that. So that saves you time of not having the same conversation over and over and over again. And you can work on making progress instead of actually just talking about it. So there's a tremendous amount of other benefits and goals that you can do by using this. But the last one I will say is that you can link epics across multiple teams, multiple projects, and multiple sprints with a shared goal. Now, this is just a test goal, once again, for the purpose of testing inside of this test environment, but you can link those and see them here as well. All right, guys, I hope you found value in this. I think this is of tremendous value. Don't be afraid to go inside of Jira and just start playing around. If your administrator is willing to work with you, ask them if they can set up a little test project for you so you can go around and play with the stuff and you learn. I believe that we don't learn by reading and watching and by being in the classroom. We learn by doing. There's a stat out there that says 1,000 hours of training is equivalent to 1 hour in the field of actually doing. And so work with your administrator and see if you can set up a testing environment to get yourself familiar with this before you create your actual plan in production. If you're wondering, Mark, my Jira doesn't look like this. What you are looking at on my screen is the latest and newest version of Jira, which is a web cloud-based Jira. You may have something that is more set up in a client server environment or a different version or an older version, and maybe it looks a little different, but conceptually it's the same. You can look at things across timeline, backlogs, boards, and the backlog and boards view I've covered in other videos, and I'll continue to cover other features like I talked about, things like Loom in future videos to come. All right, if you are someone that is not comfortable playing around with this yourself, or you're like, look, this product we're releasing is super important. We got to get the plan right. We got to make sure that we can visually explain it in a way that's easy enough for everyone to understand, but the ability at one click go granular enough for those people that want to see the details. Can you help me set this up? I'd be more than and set this up in maybe a sprint or two over the course of 2 weeks to a month, 1 to 2 sprints. We can get this set up together. I'd love to help you. Please feel free to reach out to me, give me a call, shoot me an email. It'd be my pleasure to work with you to help you get this going. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you use Jira. I hope this saves you time. This has saved me a tremendous amount of time throughout the years. I've been using this tool for over 10 years, and I love seeing all the changes they consistently roll out to it because it just makes things so much more easier to manage. All right, have a great day, and remember to hustle harder, hustle smarter, and hustle with your heart. If you have any questions, reach out. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.